Alright, I like what you got there. Let me show you what I got. Check this out. Bring the bass line. Hey yo, shut it down.
All these brothers my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side, CJ Ike, never gotta roll with ice. Generations caught up, look how things will switch. People they're quick, now they wanna move at the bits. Boy wanna go to bitch, nah. All these brothers my guys, know that they fly.
Hi, I'm the Redhead Gemini,
Hi, I am Bleuhatter.
and today our episode is going to be talking about when the mask drop, unmasking the narcissist. And the purpose of episode 8 is to help women recognize the moment a narcissist's carefully curated persona begins to unravel. This episode explores the psychological traits used to build trust during the love bombing phase, the subtle cracks that appear before the full mask slips, and how to recover from the betrayal of who you thought they were versus who they truly are. This is about reclaiming your intuition and making peace with the confusion that follows. So I have not looked at any of these questions, honestly, because I wanted it to be something that we just came off the top of our head with, nothing that we were able to rehearse, nothing that we seen beforehand. And I wanted to get your opinion and also give you my opinion. And the first section that I want to talk about is the love bombing and idealization. I may or may not have a story or two, depending on what we talk about. I don't know. So I'll shoot the first question to you and you can answer that question. What were the early signs that made you feel that the relationship that you were in now or in the past was too good to be true?
I think definitely like the signs in the relationship would be just some like the partner being extremely agreeable to everything. Like whatever food, whatever I wanted to do, whatever topics, controversial topics, it didn't matter, but every single thing was like agreeable. Like there was nothing that that person, and that partner in the past or didn't want to do, and that seemed unrealistic. Like, of course there's going to be differences in food or places you want to travel, even music, politics, anything. There has to be something, and it felt like it didn't matter what I liked, what I wanted to do. That was everything was whatever. Everything was like, yeah, me too. Yeah, I like, and that was just like that. That those were the signs for me that it was too good to be true. For sure.
That is definitely, I would say the same in past relationships that I may have been in. I'm not going to say that that person was definitely, all past relationships, that those people were definitely narcissistic. But as it pertains to my ex husband and someone that I was currently dating, I would definitely say that those are signs. Those have always been signs for me in the past. Anytime that you get into a relationship or you're dating a guy and they agree with every single thing that you say, that is the biggest red flag to me. And I'm going to tell you why. Most men don't agree with anything that you say. Most men want to be right all of the time because they are the men in the relationship and they view themselves as the head, which means because I'm the head, I know every single thing and everyone must listen to me. So anytime that you get into a relationship with a man and you're dating that man, and every single solitude thing that you say, suggest, or that you do, one, that can be an indication that that person is mirroring you. And that could be a second indication that that person actually probably is narcissistic, because most men, just off the top, when you think about it, just think about your brothers, think about your father, think about your uncles, think about your guy friends, just think about men in general. So that's
Hmm.
a very big sign that you are with somebody that is a love bomber and a possible narcissist. I talked about mirroring. So the next question is, how would you say that they mirrored your desires, dreams, or your wounds to gain your trust?
For instance, something that very much interested me was eating healthier and nutritionally, and the marrying became like, oh, now I'm shopping for this stuff, and these specific things. And also, um, I'm not sure if it's necessarily like trauma bonding, but it's also like, oh, me too, like whatever, I went through. Also we went through this together, and therefore, we we can we can bond through this together since we're on the same page. And that really does make you want to lower your defenses and be like, oh, okay, so we're on the same page here. But just because you might have gone through the same thing, that doesn't mean that you're on the same page, because you could be on the road to healing and the other person could just maybe have that experience, but has no intention in doing the work or taking accountability in your journey. So you might think, oh, we're the same, but you're not.
One of the ways also when it comes to mirroring that I find that you can see right off when a person doesn't have their own dreams or
Oh,
or
yes.
desires, or when you're describing your life and you're in a relationship with them and it's a new relationship and you're describing the goals and the plans that you have. They don't have anything, but if you say something, then me too. Oh yeah, me too. I've always wanted to do that. Oh wow, we're very similar. I wanted to do that when I was da 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 da, or in the middle of this. Well, when I was in school, you know what? I thought about that as well, but they never give you any concrete ideas or any substance to anything that you're saying. It's all just based on everything that you said. Gaining trust also could be women who tend to talk a lot in the beginning of the relationship, and they tend to divulge some of the things that happen to them trauma wise. You may often hear them say something to the effect of, oh, yeah, that happened to me too. Or the way that you grew up, they'd be, oh, I grew up that way too. And actually, I grew up a little worse because this, and this happened to me. And then those are ways that you tend to lower your defenses because it sounds like the both of you have some of the same growing pains. And so that's a form of love bombing that that people do in relationships, or we would say narcissistic people do in relationships. Can you recall how fast in your last relationship or the relationship that you're confirming the narcissist to be, can you recall how fast that relationship escalated and how that relationship made you feel at the time?
I would say it escalated quite quickly. And unbeknownst to me, I became codependent in that relationship very quickly. I felt extremely attached. I felt that it was a safe space, and that's when the codependency, I think, began. Um, because now that trauma bonding and the marrying, it made me like kind of enmeshed and dependent, like this, like it was such a strong hold and it happened so quickly. And I didn't have that connection, whether with friends or family, that was so strong on so many levels. Like you said, the marrying of lifestyle, like, oh, me too, the trauma, oh, me too. And then for us to be attracted to each other, and then it became very quickly, and it almost felt almost like a natural high, I would say, when it happened in the beginning.
What I have noticed about situations that I have been in with men that I would consider to be narcissistic, now that I have the tools to properly see what narcissism truly looks like, I would have to say that I was the opposite. I don't move into anything quickly. I kind of like play the long game and I kind of watch certain things. But there are little tests that I will give a man in between the time of me building. And one of the main things that I do after I've watched them for quite a bit of time, sometimes years, the longest I've gone is 2 years. And that was here recently. Before that time, it was maybe one, because I normally would just go like a year of dating that person just to kind of see them, never jumping into anything quickly. And what I notice is that when I start to see them do little things, I don't necessarily call them out on it. I'll wait for a while And then I'll try to have a conversation. And in that conversation, I will set a boundary. Maybe a boundary that I had not discussed with them previously because I just wanted to see how far they were going to go. But if it was a boundary that I knew was non-negotiable, for instance, raising your voice in the middle of an argument, or not being able to take accountability for something you actually did, but because you don't like how it's making you feel, or you don't like the fact that I picked up on it, now you want to flip the conversation to be about me or something that I have done. When I set that boundary, what it is what is non-negotiable for me and what I choose not to deal with ever, that is normally when I see the mask drop. Before then, when you were just going along with them and everything was cool, there was no pushback because that was the mirroring, that was the love bombing, that was them being who you were, essentially. You guys were the same person. But the minute you set a boundary that person does not intend to follow or care to follow, that is when you're going to see the true character of a narcissist rear its ugly head. So I can't say that I've had any situations that escalated quickly because I myself am not a person that moves quickly. And if I find that a person is moving quickly, I kind of back off from them a little bit until I'm comfortable. But one of the things that I do when I can't quite see the direction that is going to go is that I begin to set boundaries. It could take me 2 years to do this. And then once I set that boundary, that's normally when it all.
Yeah, the truth comes out. You know what I thought about that? When the specific relationship I was talking about was when I was younger, and um I was thinking, wow, that really is when the mask came off for me, except because I was younger, I didn't have those boundaries set. So during those years, I was getting therapy, I was getting stronger, and I was healing. And then boom, I learn about boundaries, I try to set them, and then the mask comes off, like you said. So it didn't happen for me till years later, till I got the therapy and even learned to set boundaries myself. But I would say that's very similar to my experience, that it doesn't come off until you try to set the stone and kind of, create a healthy relationship. It's almost like they can't handle that.
You have to think about it like this. You're in an environment where you're free to just roam however you choose. And that's usually how you're used to roaming about in life, in your relationships, especially a lot of men. You're used to coming into that relationship, being able to do whatever it is that you want to do. If you want to hang out with your friends and she's at home taking care of the kids, or vice versa, whatever the case may be. Because there are some women that are narcissistic as well. The percentage of them are lower than for men, but they are there. So I'll speak in terms of if it's both. And if I'm going to specify, if I'm speaking specifically who I date, which are men. If you meet a person that is used to roaming freely, however they choose to, and then you say, okay, you can't do that anymore, that is where your problem is going to come in, because that's a person that does not have boundaries for themselves. So if I don't have boundaries where I'm wanting to roam myself, how dare you try to put a boundary on me? Or you'll hear things like, well, you were fine with me doing it before.
That part.
You know what I'm saying? Or they'll say, well, I used to do this, such and such, and you never said anything about it. Why is it a problem now? I answer that question 2 ways. It's a problem now because I am learning what it is that I don't want to deal with, wherever that is in my healing journey. And then the second reason, it's a problem because I said it is. I don't like how it's making me feel. I don't like the position I feel that it's putting me in. And anytime you feel yourself having to explain your boundaries and why you have those that are set for yourself, know that you are in a situation that is unsafe. The degree of unsafety, I do not know for certain. But anytime you have to explain to your significant other why you have a boundary, you're in an unsafe situation, because who is going to be questioning boundaries unless there is a person who does not have any intention of following it? So that's why I say. So let's talk about the subtle cracks before the fall. What were the moments that you noticed inconsistencies between their words and their behaviors?
For me, it started with little things like you were okay with these type of foods, but now you're mad, or you might have something to drink, so the truth comes out and you actually say, I don't like that food and I never really liked it. So you're telling me, oh yeah, it's okay, whatever you want to cook or wherever we go. But then when it's served, or you're in a bad mood or whatever it is, and it's like, "Ugh, I don't want to eat this," or like, I don't know, some complaints like that. Also just little things like words, like I would say like words versus behavior. I guess it would also be things like wanting to commit to a family life, wanting to commit to healthy behaviors, but then not showing that in action, actually not wanting to do any of that, actually being very annoyed um, and bothered. And it's kind of like you're saying all of these nice things, you're saying all these good things just so, just to shut me up for that, for the next one. And then boom, okay, I convinced her. And then you kind of BS, and then you do it again until, you know, until like I'm like believing the words instead of that it's not happening. Like we're not doing whatever, we said we were going to do. So that's what it was for me, anyways.
I think that for myself, I noticed inconsistencies between the words and the behavior, depending on who the person was that entered into the equation. I'll give a good example. So, me and my ex-husband, we would make an agreement on our son. And this is an agreement above anybody else. But I noticed that whenever his mother entered into the picture, whatever we agreed upon would change.
Mm.
And so that caused me to not to be able to trust what he did, but more so pay attention to what it is he's saying. You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
And when I said get what he's saying, a lot of these things were unspoken. I was just reading in between the lines. One of the most significant situations that come to mind when I speak about this is a time where we had our son. And my ex-husband, he is a proponent of smoking the trees. And at his apartment, because he lived alone before we had our child, we discussed that my son would not go to his home because he smoked so much, you could smell it in the hallway, walking up to his front door. That's how strong the smell was. So we had discussed when I was pregnant that I would not allow the baby, both of us agreed upon this, that our son wouldn't go to his apartment whenever he visited with him. He would just come to my house and visit with our son at my house because of the smell of the marijuana. And our son was so young. He was a couple of weeks old at this time. He was 2 weeks old to be exact. And so this is the agreement that we had before our son was born. When our son was 2 weeks old, his mother came to town to visit. And this story kind of set the tone for the entire relationship. It kind of let me know where I was on the spectrum, where it pertained to if his mom had an opinion about something or if I had that opinion. And I don't think a lot of men pay attention to things like this as well. Mother came in town, and I guess she had asked him, hey, can I take the baby back to your apartment and keep the baby there overnight? A couple of things that are wrong in this situation. As a mother who's had children, that shouldn't have ever been a question. The child was 2 weeks old. You, being a parent, having had children, should have known that the child was 2 weeks old and the child shouldn't have been removed from the home. It's a newborn baby.
Mm-hmm.
And the second part to that was me and my ex-husband had an agreement that the child wasn't going to go to the home, and there were no amendments to that agreement. So the agreement was not he can go to the home when my mother comes in town, but when no one else comes. The agreement was he wasn't going to the home at all. And so throughout the relationship, I noticed that we would have an agreement about something where our son was concerned. And then whenever his mother came up, that agreement would automatically change. There was no conversation about it. It was just that it's my mom. And in that particular instance, when I brought to his attention that we had an agreement that the son wouldn't go there because of the smoke, he said to me, you're just trying to keep my mother from him.
Mm.
So then I started paying attention to the behavior. Because what about me trying to keep the agreement that you and I agreed upon is me keeping him from your mother? That's when I noticed that he was the type of person that would try to flip something on you and then make you out to be the bad person. Like you're doing something wrong when it's really, he's not a man of his word. And because I can't stand up to my mother and be a man of my word, I am going to, in some type of way, hold you at fault so that I can get what I want. And that is a tactic that a lot of narcissists use.
Wow.
And based on what I just said to you about my situation, I'll tell you how I responded to it. But how do you typically respond in situations like that, where you've set those type of boundaries, even agreed upon boundaries, but then that boundary gets turned into someone else's personal need?
I didn't even realize that I went through a very similar experience for many years. And I think that because of my healing process, I was not aware that this person was using these narcissistic tactics. I actually started looking at myself like, oh, why am I problematic with this mother? Why, maybe I do need to fix things. Why can't I get along? Or, well, maybe I should just and I would actually let my whatever that boundary was, let it go to keep the peace and to try to prove that I'm a good person, to try to prove that I'm not difficult. So in my experience, I did not, I did not set that because I was unaware. In a sense, I was being gaslit because I was really believing that I was the problem. So that was my experience with that, to be honest.
And so I would have to assume, and I really don't like to do that, but I'm going to assert that you probably found yourself in these moments justifying the behavior while ignoring your own instincts.
Yes.
Like you knew that what you were doing was right, but you probably found yourself kind of saying, hey, did I overreact? Wait a minute. Was that really me? Am I doing too much? You know what I'm saying?
Because I would overreact sometimes, like I couldn't believe it. And then, like that, instead of the actual boundary that was crossed, the focus was, oh, you reacted emotional or dramatic. And then I felt like at fault, like, oh, I did too much. I need to, I need to mend this. I need to fix this. It's my fault.
Were there times where you say that you found yourself in small lies or found them in small lies or contradictions that didn't feel right for you?
Yes, definitely. I found that happened a lot, and I would still get confused because I didn't have that self-validation for myself. So a lot of times I would put the blame back on me and be like, well, that doesn't make sense. And then I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's me, because I would be very confused because it would be like, okay, for example, if you're saying, oh, you're not going to smoke weed in front of the kid, but then that's a boundary, but then you go do it over here with the parents. So I'm like, wait, I thought that was I thought that was the thing. So, or we're not going to discuss certain things with our parents. So I decide, I'm like, oh, it's disrespectful, so I can't tell you what our plans are to my parents. But then we'd go to his parents and it would be like, oh, they need to know everything we're doing, what we're doing, when we're doing it, what are our plans. So it was like, wait, I thought we weren't doing parents. I thought we were just only sharing certain things with each other, and we're setting boundaries with our parents, but it was contradictory. You mean just my parents. So, but with you, it's okay. So I would say there was a lot of examples like that.
Yeah, while you were speaking, I found myself reminiscing over a situation that had happened with me and my ex-husband as well. And we were having a conversation about, I don't really want to put it out here on here, what the conversation was about, but just know that it was a very serious conversation. And he had said, and he'd asked me, let's not say anything to the family. I just want to find out a little bit more information before we mention it to the family. I wasn't going to say anything to the family anyway, because it wasn't my story to tell. It's more so his story to tell his family. So about an hour or two later, my phone gets to ringing and I'm like, hello. And it's my sister-in-law and she's on the phone and she calls me and she tells me about the situation. The same situation that hours earlier that morning, he had asked me, let's not mention this to anybody. I want to find out more information before I say anything to my mother. Da, 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 da. And then next thing I know, the sister-in-law is on the phone. And I'm like, so when I get off the phone with the sister-in-law, because now I look embarrassed. I feel embarrassed. I feel humiliated. I feel crazy because you just asked me not to say anything earlier, which I wasn't going to say anything anyway, because that's not my family. That's your family. But then I get a call about the same thing. Why did you say something when you just asked me not to? And then, of course, the reasons why he said something were the only legitimate reasons that something could have been said. Just crazy, So I do understand the little small contradictions and the situations that kind of put you in a light. And you're like, should I listen to you? Like, should I? Are you anybody that I need to be questioning? You do have those things that happen. Let's talk about when the mask actually drops.
Oh my gosh.
Can you describe the moment you saw a side of them that shocked you or felt unfamiliar? I can go first. Oh my gosh, I can go first if you like me to go first.
Sure.
So, recently, I was dating a guy. I was dating this guy on and off for like 2 years. Like I went the long game, and apparently he was going a long game too. So I go the long game. I am at his house, out of town, chilling. And a couple of times during the weekend, I kind of asked a question of him. He kind of responded with a little agitation, I perceived, right? I didn't go into this line of questioning. I just politely said, hey, you can work on your delivery. Explain to him what I was talking about. And he immediately went on the defensive and was like, well, maybe you can work on your perception. I allowed that to, do what it was going to do. Mental note went straight to my head. So you automatically did not receive what I said, and you automatically threw the honest. It just had to be my perception, right? A little bit further in the conversation, he goes on to explain that the reason why he did what he did is because he's a little bit hard of hearing. His ears had been ringing or what have you that day. I don't know if this is a permanent thing. Don't know if it's a temporary thing, because this is my first time hearing about this in 2 years. Park that. So normally when I asked the question over the last 2 years, I've never got that type of response. So immediately when he said that, I said to myself, oh, well, maybe, that's what it is. And I stopped talking. And I allowed him to continue. He continued on for about 5 minutes. After he finished talking, we were on our way out to dinner. He jumped up. He said, let's go. You ready to go eat? Place where we're going, where we live, where he lived. They closed early, but we're going to go down the road. They're open. So he had already told me that before the conversation. So when he stopped talking, because I was already done, once he said he was hard of hearing, I kind of just chalked it up. I knew in my mind that wasn't it, but I chalked it up. The mental note. Put it there. And the mental note was that I needed to pay attention to my perception. That was the mental note. So I let everything else ride because I'm just that type of person. I heard you. I'm paying attention. So let him finish talking, stood up, let's go. So we leave and we're going to the restaurant. A whole way to the restaurant, we don't talk about the situation. I don't bring it up again because as far as I'm concerned, he could barely hear. That's why he had that response to me. So I've let that fly.
Mm-hmm.
So the next day, we wake up and he's like, hey, I need to get my car service. Can you take me to get my car service? And I'm like, sure. So we go, we get the car service. So I feel like this is a great time at breakfast when he asked if I want to get something to eat to address what he said the night before. Not because it was on my mind to address it, but on the way out the door, he brought up my profession as if though I'm trying to therapize or say anything about him in that light. He brought up my profession. And he also stated that morning, I need to watch how I say things to you because you're taking them sensitive. So, mental note number 2. Most times, when a narcissist wants you to think you are the problem, just like most men, they will use the word emotional and they will use the word sensitive. Anyone who knows me knows that I am the least emotional person that you're ever going to meet in your life. That does not mean that I am not emotionally mature and that I am not emotionally intellectual. That just means that normally when I am dealing with people, I have learned how to remove my emotions from my dealings so that I am not harshly judging you and I'm able to judge you unbiased. But if I am emotionally tied to you because I care anything about you or because you're my child or because you're my friend, I am going to judge you more harshly. That is a reality because we are human. That is what we do. So I have mastered the art of being able to detach my emotions when I am dealing with someone so that I am able to see them as a human being first. That's it. So I made that mental note to myself because 2 years prior to, I recall having a phone conversation with him. We were talking about something. I do not recall exactly what it was, celebrity marriage or something. I think it was Tia Mowry and Corey Hardrick, and we were talking about narcissism. And he brought the word up.
Wow.
I made the comment that we were talking about co-parents meeting the parents, meeting the new parent. So for instance, if he got married to me or I got married, would you be okay with the parents meeting the other parent? He was like, no, I would never do that. Da, 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 da. He went on to tell me how his daughter's mom and some whole story was going on.
Wow.
I am a proponent that if I get into a relationship with someone and my child is young enough that they have to live in the home with me and the person that I'm dating, I should be able to introduce you to that child's parent. I am of the mindset of that.
Mm-hmm.
However, I actually had this conversation with my ex-husband and asked him if I ever moved on and got into a relationship and I had to move into a home with someone else and our son was still at that age, would you want to meet them? He told me no, he didn't need to meet them. I am not of that mindset. I am of the mindset that you should know who is around your child.
Yeah.
So if me and the current guy are having this conversation, I think back to that. And then I say, well, I had a conversation, with my son's father, and he didn't want it. He was like, well, I don't think that's necessary because my daughter's mom will say all type of stuff. And he just went on and on and on. This was 2 years ago.
Wow.
Now, keep in mind, this is 2 years later, and I have kept a mental note of that entire conversation because I'm going to play this the long game.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm listening to him talk to me, and he's going on, and he said, that's just narcissistic to me. And I was like, excuse me, why do you think that's narcissistic? And he was like, well, no, I hope you're not getting all emotional. Click. That's when I hung up the phone. That was 2 years ago. Right?
Wow.
So now 2 years later, we're at this restaurant. I'm having this conversation. And I bring up the fact that you brought up emotional and sensitive. This is the second time you've done that in 2 years, and I'm going to tell you why. Let me set a boundary that I don't want you to say that to me anymore. I said, and the reason why I'm setting this boundary is most times when a woman is having a conversation with a man about something he's done to her, the first thing he wants to tell her is that she's being emotional and she's been sensitive to invalidate whatever her issue is that she's having with him. I said, and because I know that I'm not a very emotional person, I'm not going to allow you to put that on me in this conversation. And then I tell him, I am the least emotional person that you're ever going to meet. You can ask anybody that knows me. I am very compassionate. I am very empathetic. I am very sympathetic. I have emotional intelligence. I am very emotionally mature, but I also know that when you're dealing with your family, your friends, and your loved ones, sometimes you have to remove the emotion so that you can judge them unbiasedly and be able to see all sides of that situation. I've learned to effectively do that. So when I'm sitting across from you telling you that I'm not going to allow you to call me emotional because you want to put something on me when you're the one that's being emotional, I mean that. And at that moment, when I set that boundary, the mask dropped. He became defensive. He was flailing his arms all at the table. His octave started rising. And I politely said, could you lower your tone? We're in the restaurant and people are able to hear you. My tone is not loud. Still going on. And I'm just letting him. And then he says, well, I just don't want to talk about this anymore. I said, so because you don't want to talk about it anymore, because you can't have your way, you're going to sit here and throw a tantrum. I'm very direct. But he knew that about me. And he says, I need to use the restroom, but we can get ready to go. Pays for the food. We get up, we get in the car. I was of the assumption we weren't talking about it anymore because that's what you said in the restaurant, and I let it go. So we get in the car because, hey, I'm a mover and a shaker. Whatever you say, that's what I'm going to do. Okay? So we get in the car. I proceed to start driving, and then he starts bringing up the conversation again. I'm driving there. So I'm paying attention to the road, and I'm paying attention to him. And he's going on and on and on and on. And then I say, can you relax? You need to relax. He's going on and on and on. I turn around and say, you're acting like a child. And now, can't you see that you're raising your voice? I say, I'm not raising my voice. But you're acting like a child and you need to relax. So then I turn on the radio and turn it up. He's still whatever this. And I said, listen, I don't do all of this that you're doing right now. And then I don't care. Now I'm staying at his house for the weekend. I know already in my mind when he yelled out, it was really before he yelled that out. But when I told him I don't do all of this that he's doing, and this after 2 years now, I've not seen any of this.
Wow.
Any of this. And I've been around this man for the last 2 years, but I've never been around this man in this amount of time, in this short amount of, you get what I'm saying? Like I've not been around him in his cohabitat where he feels comfortable. Where he feels like he can just be himself. I'm from out of town. I drove there though. So I'm just, it's all just going
Mm-hmm.
in. The mental aspect of it is just, it's just going in. I see the mask. It's coming. As soon as I set that boundary, damn. This is the real you. This is the you that came out 2 years ago in that conversation. But I ended you showing it to me because I hung up the phone on you. So you had time to recalibrate.
Mm-hmm.
And at that moment, you knew, okay, I got to be a little easy with this one because she will cut me off.
Mm-hmm.
She will block me. And I need to win it over. So this
Wow.
went on for 2 years. And I played the long game right along with him. So we're in this car still and we're driving and we're on the way back to the house. And then I try to change the subject and I turn around and say, hey, because I dropped him to get his car serviced. What time does your car need to be picked up? This is me. I don't know. And I'm like, what? What do you mean?
Say what?
I didn't ignored this man the whole time he been doing this. Because in my mind, I already know when I get back to your house, sweetheart, I am packing all of my things and I am leaving. So you could do, but just to see, if I had enough time to take him back to get the car, I just turned around and I just asked. And that was the day me and you were supposed to record too. So I was like, let me just find
Yeah.
out. So if I got time to jump in a recording with you. So I turn around and I say, he says, let me back up. He says, I don't know. And if you don't want to take me, you don't have to. And I'm like,
Where'd that come
I never said I didn't want to take you anywhere. I'm only asking you because I want to see if I'm going to be able to schedule a recording. I need to get a recording in. That's the only reason why I'm asking. I said, but it's whatever. Oh, well, the time is, I don't know. That's the time. Unwarranted.
Unwarranted.
Unprovoked. I'm not giving you any of that energy. And I've been trying to de-escalate this situation since the morning of. But the reason why I brought all of that up is the thing about the boundary. For 2 years, this man played the long game. 2 years. And I spotted it immediately.
Wow.
When I set the boundary, and I'm going to say I even spotted it 2 years ago when I hung up. That's why I hung up. But when I reconnected with him, I got none of that. I think that being in his space, him being comfortable, his guard was down. Because I don't think that the behavior would have been the same had he been in my space.
That makes sense.
I think that because we had a disagreement the night before and I laid down and I went to sleep, I think he thought that the second disagreement was going to end the same way. But what I needed him to understand is this, and this is any man and any woman that's listening. What you put up with will continue. I needed to let him know that I do not like your behavior. This is my boundary. Because what we were having a disagreement about was nothing that needed to get to the level of your mask dropping off the way that it dropped. Let that have been a situation that was huge. How do you think that would have ended? We weren't even having a disagreement about anything that was huge at all. It was a simple conversation about your delivery. And the minute he explained to me that he had a problem with that was, had been having ear problems or a ring in his ear or whatever, I accepted that that's what it was because I don't know any different. You hadn't brought any hearing issues to me the last 2 years on and off that I had been speaking with you. So I didn't have any reason to question whether or not he was telling a lie or the truth. I just accepted him at his word. But his behavior the next day showed me that I was not at all incorrect about what I perceived of him. And all it took was for me to put a boundary and tell him what I wasn't going to put up with. And then the whole mask just fell completely off. And I know that was a long story, but I needed to kind of like tell that story so that you could see how I saw it from the beginning. There were maybe one red flag 2 years prior to. Every single situation with him after that point was one that I can't even pick out. Even now that I've been away from him and I've just been processing the whole 2 years, because, you know, I'm thinking like, wow, how did that get there? There wasn't one other situation until it was. And that's what I needed to see. Can you describe a moment when you've ever seen anything similar to that? Like either the progression of the mask falling or the mask just completely just dropping?
Yes, I think that it's good to have these two examples because I think in your experience, you as soon as you see the red flag, you're out. And like me, unfortunately, and other women, we tend to blame ourselves and we tend to internalize and spiral. So you can get stuck for 5 years, 15 years, thinking that well, what did I do? Well, maybe I did this, maybe I could fix this, or maybe it was me. Um, and in my experience, one of the main things was when I didn't have a voice and I didn't like confrontation, which worked out for my partner. But when I started to have a voice or something upset me and I decided to voice it and not let it go, that is when the mask would fall off because this person was not okay with me being confrontational or asking questions and not letting things go. Usually, if I would get into a conflict, even if I did bring it up, eventually I'd be like, okay, well, let me be the bigger person, forget it, sweep it under the rug. And it was almost like, okay, good, I got for that, that round. Let's go again for another round, for the next BS situation. But unfortunately, a lot of the times I would internalize it and think it was something wrong with me, instead of realizing that I wasn't the problem. Like because the mask would come off and there would be an excuse always, like, oh, well, remember how with you was the hearing thing? So it would be like, oh, but this happened to me. This horrible trauma happened to me. This is why. Or I had a really bad headache. This is why. So then I'd be like, oh, okay, like I'm the jerk. Like, he has a really bad headache. I'm over here, this is not the time. So a lot of the times when I bring something up, then it would come back to me. And unfortunately, that happened for many years until it didn't take until my self-confidence to really realize that it was not me. And the mask was coming off because that was the real person, not the other person that I was romanticizing with my rose-colored glasses.
Yeah, I think that for myself, I knew certain things about him that were absolutely fine with me. I like the fact that he was a very direct person because I'm a very direct person. I like the fact that he could say things bluntly, and me be the same. We had a lot of parallels in our life that were the same. And I think that is the reason why I continue to talk to him, because I would rather see you in the natural person of who you are. But I also think there was a layer to that. And that layer was that he brought up his ex-wife in our conversation. And
Wow.
it was very odd to me when he brought her up, because he said to me, what he brought up was the mysterious thing. He said that my ex-wife, she used to say things to you that could truly, truly cut you. And I used to tell her all the time that, you can catch a bee quicker with honey than you can with flies. And what that said to me in that situation was that he was in a relationship where he did not feel heard.
Mm.
He fought to be heard in that relationship because he kept mentioning cutting him off and things like that. Although he was cutting you off every time he said something that you didn't like, he kept mentioning that. And oftentimes, men who grew up with mothers that were dominating, like so their mother raised their voice at them or yelled and fussed at them a lot, and they didn't have a voice. Oftentimes, get into relationships and speak to the women in the relationships the way that they wish they could speak to their moms. But because
Mm.
she's their mother and they couldn't talk to her like that, then they talk to the women that they're in a relationship with that way. Because just anytime that you raise an octave, if that's what you grew up listening to, then of course that's something that you're going to fall upon. And although a man may want a strong woman because strength is what they saw in their mothers when their mothers were strong. I've heard that from so many guys out there, I just love how strong you are, and you remind me so much of my mom. But then there are those things that remind them once they get to know you and they fall for you and you get into a relationship, there are also those things that remind them of their mothers that they do not like about you. And unfortunately, those things are those bad things that they don't like are going to override the good things about you, because those are the things that left the most of the impression upon their minds when they were growing up. And their moms being domineering, which is why you hear them say things like, I want me a woman that's docile and meek and, really, really quiet, because she can be strong as long as she's silent. That's why you hear that. It's most of the time a remembrance of their mother and how that mother showed up in their lives. And I don't know his dynamics with his mother. We didn't really discuss her, and what we did discuss, I'm not going to repeat because that was a private conversation. But I will say that when he brought up his ex-wife, and I wasn't even in the tone of raising my voice, I was speaking very calmly, saying, hey, can you relax? Please don't do that. All of the things that men say they want, it didn't matter. That didn't matter. He
Wow.
was already in that energy. So
Mm-hmm.
nothing that I said would have calmed him down but him.
Mm.
And if he's not able to emotionally regulate himself, there is nothing I'm going to be able to do for him, no matter what profession I'm in, because your emotional intelligence and your emotional regulatory system is upon you. It's not upon me. I can give you the tools and I can try to assist you and I can try to de-escalate the situation, but ultimately it is not upon me to make you calm down and regulate yourself, especially when I'm not the person that's getting you upset. That's really upon you. And you have to learn how to do that. And even driving in a car, with me being the person that's driving, you're still carrying on that way. Even when I've said you need to relax, you need to calm down. It shows me that you have no self-regulation. And these are the people who say they would like to lead us in life. Lead us where? Off the cliff? I'm the calm one, but you're calling me emotional. You're flailing your arms and doing all of the things.
Oh my gosh.
It was a sight to see, but it
Wow.
is. You know, these are the situations that I live for, because I'm just like, where are you getting this information? Who told you that, sir? This is exhibit A right here. Let's talk about the psychological fallout on the ending. How do you process the realization that a person is not who they claim to be? How do you process that realization?
Mm. Um, for me, it's very difficult. In fact, I'm not gonna lie, there are times where I second guess myself, where I'm processing it and I'm still like, wait, are you sure? Or remember this. But then it's very important, I think, to remember those very sinister words and things that they did or said, because I think what happens with codependency, with narcissism, you get used to being at fault, and you get so used to blaming yourself that even when you're separated, you still start doing it to yourself even when they're gone. So like, for me, I had to keep telling myself and literally save the text and the thing that was like, okay, this is it, because every time I saw it, it would remind me, because I kept going back to, oh, well, maybe, or, not, like, kind of second guessing myself, like thinking, did I try my best? Did I do the right thing? Was I seeing it the right way? And I think that once I did finally go through that, I really had to sit with it and be at peace with my decision and be at peace with the truth. And it's very uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable for me because I'm not used to doing that. I'm not used to not being the one at fault, because I'm used to being like, oh, it's me. I need to fix myself. I have these issues. I have the trauma. Somehow I'm the one. So it was very uncomfortable for me to admit and realize, oh, it's not me. Like, I'm good actually. And I did, try and set those boundaries, and I really did try to make the healthiest choices in the relationship, but it was never going to be, because that person was not on the same page. They were just trying to pretend and mirror. And that's why it was
Mhm.
confusing me so much, because it would mirror even like the healthy words that I was saying, like even the psychological words that you were saying, oh, I'm doing this too, or, and so it was very confusing, but processing that has been a process for me, to be real.
I don't think I've ever taken the time to really come into the realizations of people claiming to be anything other than what they say they are. I think that honestly, I don't have to come into the realization. I just kind of see people for who they say they are. And whatever you show me, I'm going to believe it until I do not. And these
Mm-hmm.
are the reasons why. I was 16 years old. I was walking down the street one day and I had on all black, and I used to always dress in black. And in my mind, I thought I was covering the things that I had gone through, the trauma that I had experienced in my life. And so I just wore black all the time. Shoes, everything I owned was black. And every time I got paid or while working, I would just purchase me jeans, shirts, but everything had no color. I didn't think about it at the time, right? I know better now, but I didn't think about it at the time. So one day I was just, strolling down the street, and this guy, older man, stopped me and he said, "Hey." And I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "What are you trying to hide?" And I was like, wow. That's the first time I think in my life at 16 years old that I questioned, why are you always dressed in black? And it was at that time that I myself came in a realization that I was claiming to be an innocent person, void of mistakes, which I truly was outside of my trauma. But I was dressed up like it was my fault. I
Wow.
thought I was covering that. I was really exposing
Mm-hmm.
that. And so that day, I went home and I picked out the pieces of black that I wanted. And then every time I got paid after that, everything I bought had color. And now I have over
Um,
400 pair of shoes. I have all type of color all around me, because I really thought that I was covering something up, but I really was just exposing the trauma that I had gone through. And it took that man to show me that. So I think now I pay attention more so to what people say. I'm going to give you a prime example of what I mean versus what they do. If I'm talking to a guy right now, he says to me, "I'm not looking for anything serious." That's what I'm going to always remember I've always been this way.
mm-hmm.
I've always been this way. I don't hear him say one thing, and then because he's doing all these other things, I go with what he's doing. I go with what he said. Because if he never says anything different, that's what he meant. But a lot of times we romanticize the things that are being done to us and what we're going through. And oh, this just feels like, oh, he's on the phone with me all the time and all of that. I'm never loud about a man that's not loud about me. Never. We romanticize actions too much, but when the actions don't line up with what they're actually saying, and what he initially said was he wasn't looking for anything serious. And throughout that year or two, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, you are not to assume because you've been hanging on for that long that it is something other than what he initially said. Because if he never changed what he initially said, that is what he meant. Our problem is we see all of this as being what he actually meant. Even though he said this, we see all of this as being what he actually meant. And that's just not how that works. What parts of yourself did you begin to doubt in those relationships where you were self-blaming yourself?
Or definitely it depends on the relationship, but if if they strongly would disagree with something that I'm passionate about, I will start lowering that because I'm avoiding conflict and I'm trying to keep the peace. And in my mind, I'm trying to meet him at his level, but I'm actually lowering myself and dimming my light to make room for him. But there's this emptiness because he's not filling it with some other kind of, activity or knowledge or anything. For instance, if for me, it's very important that there's a lot of time spent meditating or doing yoga or reading versus just mindless scrolling or having the TVs on and whatnot. That's very important to me, but it can begin with, oh, just a little bit of TV, and then, maybe, yoga or something like that, or do a little bit. And then all of a sudden, like, I think that I'm assuming that if I lower my, then, we'll get a balance. But eventually what happens is that it all becomes like I wake up and like nothing is even me anymore. Like, this is not my lifestyle. It's not the way I like to eat. This is not even what I like to watch. I've never had a TV in my room all my life. I do not I do like documentaries and I do like certain ones, but I don't like to have it in the room at all. And so I remember kind of waking up from it like if it was a dream, like I couldn't even believe it. I was like, what? Like I would just like be like, wait, what? How did I get here? Like what happened? Because it happens very slowly. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't happen very quickly, so it happens right before your eyes. And that's why a lot of women and even friends, cousins or sisters of mine, it happens a lot when they're with this type of person and they have a baby because they get so exhausted and they lose.
Mm.
And a lot of times, like, they come to me and they don't know who they are anymore. They lose their identity. Um, and it could happen when it's not necessarily an abusive narcissistic person. It's just that, with these men, it just becomes they're very good at being selfish, and women are very good at helping and doing everything and just always planning ahead and knowing the hundreds of things that need to be done for the child. So they're taking care of the child, and then they just lose themselves. And I've definitely lost myself in with voicing myself. That I think that's the main thing, that I felt like I wanted to speak up about things that I went through, and I was not, that made that my partner very uncomfortable. So I kept that in for so long, and the body keeps score. I felt like it not only affected me and my voice, but affected my body. Like I felt like very closed, like shut down, and just not free or light, I felt very heavy and constricted. And I feel like it affects all facets of your life, even your breathing, your speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that.
Um, I was thinking that growing up, people don't tell you about as a child, people don't tell you that one day your parents aren't going to be around and your friends are going to be around and that you're going to have a voice for yourself. People don't tell you how to be an individual in society. A lot of times you grow up and you're guided into being who society wants you to be. But in them guiding you to be who society wants you to be, they don't tell you that you also have to be an individual in society. They don't teach that. So as you grow up and you go through things, whether it be trauma, whether it just be, I had a good day, I had a bad day, whatever you go through, and you have to sit with yourself and you have to think about, what am I going to do? That's what we're not taught. And when you're grouped in with other people and you're taught to be like other individuals, it is very easy for someone to come in and trick you out of your spot. Because you don't know any better, because you've never been taught individualism. Stand up for yourself. Have a voice. Speak. You're not taught these things. And then even when you are taught them as a collective, because I'm not saying nobody teaches their children these things. I'm saying that that's not normally what we're taught as a collective. So then when you start having a voice and you start speaking out, you become the problem. Because you're not fitting into the status quo. You're no longer in the niche. You're not in the circle anymore. You stood out. What's your problem? This isn't broke. Why are you trying to fix it? It's benefiting me.
Yes.
Why are you bothering? It's benefiting me. Leave it alone. People would rather benefit off your pain than help you process it. And I think that is where we are. And that's why you got this so-called gender. There's no so-called gender war. There's no war among men and women. The war is among ideology and systems. It's not among the male or the female. It's among ideologies and systems. Until you break away from a system and become an individual, you're never going to be able to fully fight for your place, no matter what it is, because you might break away from this part of the system, but you have to completely break. And the system in what we're speaking about today is the system of silence. You have to break away from systematic silencing. If it's in your gut, if it's in your thought process, if it's in your mind to think it, it is in there to be it. That is your body. That is your nervous system saying, stop. This is a red flag. We have a savior complex as women. We do. We have a savior complex.
Yeah.
Just want to save everything.
Every damn thing.
And I just think that we have to move away from that, honestly. I was just sitting here thinking about ways of rebuilding. I don't know why I felt that so deeply, but just as a woman, we aren't taught. And I mean, and I can say this for men as well, but I'm not a man, so I'm not speaking as a man. I'm speaking as a woman to women because our show is about her psychology. So we're really talking about the women, and we aren't taught to be individual people. We're taught to be this person as an object, woman, body inside of a system. And that's what we need to deconstruct. We need to reveal ourselves to be individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And if it says go with it, go with it. We doubt ourselves because of what we're being taught, because what we know we will face. We doubt ourselves because of those things. We're not doubting ourselves because we don't think we can do it. We could do anything. And we know we could do anything. Because when we have the thought, we're like, oh, I'm going to do it. And then immediately, no. That's not really you, though. That's the societal thing that I'm talking about. We have to deconstruct our minds from system to individual. We can all come together as a collective, but accountability, which is the biggest thing that we hear everybody talk about, that is an individual thing, and accountability starts within. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the individual that I'm talking about. We have to deconstruct from the system and put the individualism of accountability and how we want to show up and serve for ourselves and our communities on the person right in front of us. Do you have any closing remarks?
I just wanted to say thank you for validating also the word sensitive and emotional. I was labeled that all my life, and it was used to weaponize, and I wasn't. I was old because I am very emotional. I'm very sensitive, so I always like, how can I fix this? How can I harden myself? Why, So. I just want women to not feel bad for that. And also, if you are in a situation where you didn't see the signs, and you were, you're not alone. It took me a while. So, yes, I definitely resonate with you, and we're in this together. So you are not crazy if you feel sensitive, if you feel emotional, if you feel like this partner is gaslighting you. That's probably true. It's probably true, and you should have that confidence to just get out of there because you're not only going to be doing it for you, for your child and yourself, but your body is going to feel better mentally and physically, and things are going to get better even if you don't have anything, even if all you have is a little trash bag. It's going to be so much better than being in that toxic environment. Don't let yourself think that it's safe or it's better for the kids, because it's not. That's what it looks like, but remember what it feels like, and women need to feel that in their gut. If you feel it, because I believe you felt it from the beginning, with those little signs. If you feel it, go with that. Don't let
Mhm.
anyone make you feel differently. And that's my closing remark. Thank you.
You're welcome. I absolutely agree. This is the affirmation that I would like to give for you as far as the situation that I went through and that I felt, and so that maybe you'll feel it as well. I trust that what I saw when the mask fell was real. I do not need more proof, more pain, or more chances to validate the truth. I saw who they really are, and now I choose me. Here are my closing remarks. A narcissist mask is built to reflect who you need them to be. But when the illusion fades, the truth doesn't lie, it reveals. That moment is painful, but it also a portal to your freedom. Don't wait for them to put the mask back on and then reveal that they were really wearing one, which was the warning. Trust it. Honor your intuition. And remember, just because they hid it well doesn't mean you missed the signs. You were loving, but they were way more strategic. You still win when you walk away. Here are the recommended books for this episode. Should I Stay or Should I Go? Surviving a Relationship with a Narcissist, Romani de Rasula. The Narcissist You Know by Joseph Virgo. Disarming the Narcissist, Wendy T. Beharry. And then Psychopath Free, Jackson McKenzie. I don't have any more closing words. Paulina, I want to thank you for joining me today. As usual, I am the Redhead Gemini, signing off.